This program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com. This live video stream is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln and online at merealty.com. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center makes an impact locally and beyond through a wide range of events, ministries, and outreaches. Pastors Steve and Debbie Owens invite you to worship Sunday mornings at 10:30 and attend Wednesday night Bible studies at 6:30. Connect with FGEC online, follow them on Facebook, download their app, and visit their new website at myfgec.org with live YouTube video streams as well as recordings of services and special events. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center, 304 North McLean Street in Lincoln. Whether you're buying or selling your home, the brokers of Me Realty will work with you to get the deal done. As one of Central Illinois' top producing offices for decades, Me Realty has the experience to guide you through the process. You want results? Call the brokers of Me Realty at 217-735-5424, stop by the office at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, or check out local listings online at merealty.com.
Culver's is a family restaurant. To me, that means being the place that puts a smile on everyone's face. We're famous for our cooked-to-order butter burgers and frozen custard made daily inside our restaurants. But we've always believed more menu options mean more ways to brighten your day. We source the finest chicken to bring you our tenders and chicken sandwiches. And our cheese curds. They're a Wisconsin tradition we're proud to share with you. So take the next meal shift off and let us take care of you. Welcome to Delicious.
Culver's, home of the Butterburger, 2530 Woodlawn Road in Lincoln.
Regular fans, you all know there's a home field advantage when it comes to sports. The same applies when purchasing a car, truck, or having your vehicle serviced. You'll have the home field advantage when shopping at Grouse Chevrolet in Lincoln. The trained sales staff at Grouse will provide you with a no-pressure sales process. It'll put you at ease all the way through the delivery. When it comes time for service, the certified mechanics will care for your vehicle like it's their own. Call or stop by the dealership on North Kickapoo Street in Lincoln or online at growinc.com.
This is Corporal Brian Clements with the Lincoln Police Department. This week, Lincoln Logan County Crime Stoppers is seeking information in reference to a theft that took place at Jake's Furnishings. On Saturday, October 18th at 11:36 a.m., a black Volkswagen Passat or Jetta pulled into the Jake's Furnishings parking lot. A white male exited the vehicle and stole 3 granite monument stands that were sitting on the edge of the building. The male was thin-built and shorter in stature. There are 2 surveillance videos that are available for viewing on the Lincoln Police Department Facebook page. If you have any information on this crime, please contact the Lincoln Logan County Crime Stoppers anonymously at 217-732-3000 or the Lincoln Police Department at 217-732-2151. Tips leading to an arrest could receive a cash reward of up to $1,000. Crime Stoppers only wants your information, not your name.
The Lincoln Logan County Crime Stoppers Crime of the Week is brought to you by Me Realty, supporting a thriving community safe for families through support of the Crime Stoppers program. Me Realty, 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com.
about this project?
Can't hear you.
So I'll do all the intros for my colleagues here. My name is Peter Gohausen. I'm a director of energy origination. So what that means is myself and Greg and Riley go around looking for great areas to build projects using the electrical grid. So we're going to tell you a lot more about it. I made the drive over today from Kansas City, so I'm a fellow Midwesterner, so it's great to see everybody here tonight. Greg and Riley came up from sunny Florida and brought some nice weather with them. So
I think I got this working.
Okay.
Everyone hear me? Yeah. Well, like Peter said, thanks for coming out. And my name is Greg Irwin. I'm the SVP of Origination for HUD 8, and looking forward to talking about our project tonight. And then Riley, you might be able to.
Can you all hear me? Okay. I'll just speak loudly. I'm Riley. I'm an associate on the energy origination team. It's great to meet you all. I grew up in small town Maine, and now I moved down to Florida to work with HUD 8. And excited to talk to you all tonight and hear your opinions on the data center.
Okay, thank you very much. Please. All right, committee. This is a regular committee meeting. We've got to go through committee business. We will do that. We need to have you all look through the minutes. I'll need a motion to approve the minutes, please. Motion made by Mr. Sanders. Second by Mrs. Fitzpatrick. Any discussion on the question? All in favor, state aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Under old business, penalty violation for zoning ordinance. I'm going to hand that over to Mr. Green.
Where are we at with that?
My name's Al Green. I'm a zoning officer for Logan County. The penalties ordinance, I talked to Brad, state's attorney, tonight, and he says that there's no problem with that, so we can draw that up and basically introduce it to the planning commission to start that process.
Well, hold on to it. Let us go to teach you, boys. Anything more on the enterprise zone?
No.
No, okay. All right, that takes care of old business. Now the minute you've been waiting for. We're going to have a presentation from these kind people, and I will ask this. Let the presentation proceed all the way through, and then we'll have time for public comment, which you can ask questions. Now, do be advised, this is not a public hearing, so what you may be used to if you've attended the meeting of the Planning Commission or the ZBA is a bit different. We don't swear you in. You're not under oath. This is a committee meeting. So it's just a bit different there. So if you would please, ladies and gentlemen, you could direct your line of sight either here or there, and we will put this up on the web or the Facebook page or both so that you have copies of this. And without further ado, please. Here, it's not just this one. Yeah, hold it in.
Not a good start on the technology front tonight from a technology company, so appreciate you being patient with me tonight. Mike, thanks for the microphone. Again, I really appreciate everybody coming out here. It's a Monday night, early January. I know you guys all have a lot of things going on. And we're really excited to be here and tell you more about this. I also want to thank Al Green for helping put this together. Al said his phone has been burning a hole in his pocket with all the inbound requests for information about the project, and so we're hopefully here to answer all your questions and concerns and really tell you about the exciting opportunity that we're working on here in Logan County. So real quick, I want to take a quick poll of the audience. How many people brought their smartphone with them here tonight? good number of you guys. I always like to see, how many people or who in the audience has the most amount of saved photos, whether it's of your grandkids or your kids or whatever it might be, of your favorite memories. As soon as you hit that 200 to 300 amount of photos saved on your phone, and all of a sudden you have to go to your cloud and it takes a while to load, you're like, man, what's going on? Where are my photos? Why aren't they instantly available? And the reason is because once you get to a certain point on your phone, those photos get saved in what we are here to talk about tonight, a data center. I'm sure a lot of you over the holidays had a chance to stream some Netflix or YouTube TV or whatever your entertainment of choice might have been to get through some cold days here in Southern Illinois. And so with all of that, again, we get back to the use of the data center. So I like to really make sure everybody here tonight understands what a data center is and why we believe they are necessary to continue developing here in Logan County and across the Midwest. They largely are the backbone of most of modern life. I'm sure we have a lot of farmers here tonight. I know yields are continuing to go up, and a lot of that is due to data input. And again, it all kind of comes back to data and data and data. So much of our life today revolves around data, and so much of that data flows back to a data center. So as data and technology continue to take up a bigger part of our life and the economy that we live in, there's going to be a growing need for more data centers to continue the pace and the style of life that we've gotten used to enjoying. So kind of really just want to make sure everybody with what we're doing here tonight, it really is a benefit to everybody in this room and to everybody in our country. So the first use of data science, I understand there's a lot of veterans here tonight, so I like to kind of talk about where data science came from. And has anybody in the room seen the movie The Imitation Game? It came out maybe 10 or 15 years ago. It was about a British data scientist, Alan Turing. Alan Turing, during World War II, is largely responsible for at least shortening the war by 2 to 3 years, and some say even winning the war, because he was responsible for intercepting Morse code from Nazi Germany. And with that, the Allied powers, were able to beat the Axis sooner and more efficiently. And so fast forward to today, why I could bring up Alan Turing, our company, HUD-8. HUD-8 is the place where Alan Turing was doing all his work in England during that time. So our company really starts from the backbone of the origination of data science. And we want to kind of continue to grow that into the future. And so really what we are doing is developing the energy infrastructure that will allow data use to continue to grow efficiently and effectively. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Greg to tell you a little more about HUD-8 here.
Thanks, Peter. So HUD-8 is a publicly traded digital infrastructure company based in South Florida. We're listed on the NASDAQ, and the current iteration of HUD-8 came together through a merger in December of 2023 between two companies, the company that I came from, USBTC, and what I'll refer to as Legacy HUD-8 Mining Corp. And so in 2023, we merged the companies, we re-domiciled the company from Canada to South Florida, listed on the NASDAQ, and had a leadership transition, and have been charting out the course for what we want to be when we grow up the last couple of years. And so as Peter mentioned, we're really big believers in owning digital infrastructure for various different types of compute. We own a gigawatt of infrastructure across the US and Canada that's operating. And we also own 300 megawatts of gas generation, although that was from a previous management team, and we have since announced that we're going to invest those generation assets to focus specifically on building and operating more data center infrastructure. That deal was announced late last year, and hopefully going to consummate that. It was with Dvlpmnt, which is a large publicly traded Canadian company focused on generation. So of that gigawatt of generation, a lot of it is based in Texas. We have a site in New York, and we have a couple sites, in Alberta. One of the biggest things that we recently announced that we're very proud of is we announced a big development data center in Louisiana, where we just signed a deal with Anthropic, Google, and FluidStack to build a 330 megawatt utility data center that we're planning on having online in Q2 of 27. And what's really exciting about that is that we went to a small town in West Feliciana Parish in Louisiana, and we worked collaboratively with them. They've been great to bring this site to their community, and it's going to be a big win. We can talk about that a little bit more. To their community, and we'd like to do something similar here. And what's really exciting is that there's a lot of companies running around trying to build data centers. But what's really unique about what we pulled off in Louisiana is that we have 15 years of the lease backed by Google credit. So a lot of people are worried that a lot of these companies are going to pop up and they're going to leave tomorrow. And so we were very thoughtful about who we partnered with and the strength of the partners that we partner with to make sure that they're going to be long lasting. And you can see a quote from the governor of Louisiana up on the TV, and we're really proud of that, and we're looking to execute on that. We've already broken ground, and again, hope to have the first phase on in Q2 2027. Peter, you want to take this? I'll just hang out here.
Yeah, so as we look towards continuing to grow upon the success we are enjoying down in Louisiana, we're really excited to bring something similar here to Logan County. So right now, first of all, I want to caveat that we are very early on in this process. We are, if you're a baseball fan, we're in the first inning. We've identified a plot of land in Logan County. We started doing some environmental assessment work on it. What we do a lot of land work to ensure the plot of land is fit and suitable for the type of project we want to do. So we are early on in this process, and again, I appreciate everybody coming out to be here and learn more as we continue to evolve in this project and grow this project, hopefully in listening to the community, understanding what you guys want, because we want to be good partners with you guys. So with our site in Logan County, we have about 250 acres under control, what we call land option. So we have an option to purchase the land in a couple of years if we can get everything else down pat, including community support, which is why we're here tonight. We are about 3 miles to the west of the town of Latham, Illinois, right off 121. The site is strategic because it is right next to an Ameren substation off a high voltage power line. And for data centers, the power input is the primary component of a successful data center. At this point, we are working with the utility Ameren to build a 500 megawatt data center. And as Greg mentioned, we will look to use that for high capacity compute. Again, back to the Netflix and all the data, and
You're throwing out a lot of terms that we don't know what they are.
okay,
So
sorry, yeah,
if you could break down all the acronyms
Yeah,
and all the
yeah.
terms, that would be a good thing.
definitely.
Yeah, so to put it in context a little bit more, we're targeting building 500 megawatt data center. And what does that mean? It's probably better for me to explain what that means in terms of square footage. So 200 acres. We have 200 acres that we're actually looking to rezone, whether it be through a CUP or formal rezoning process. We have an additional 55 acres that we have under site control that we're not actually looking to zone. What we actually build on for everyone is 25, for everyone's benefit, 25 to 50 acres. And the footprint of the data center is probably somewhere between 1 million to 1.3 million square feet, if that's helpful. Why do we get all of the extra land, people would ask, is really just for aesthetic purposes. We like to have appropriate buffers, be good neighbors, plant mature trees, etc. So out of that 255 acres, depending how you want to look at it, we're going to use a fraction of that. Is that helpful, Mike, in terms of context? on size, and I'll keep running through some of these. In terms of application, I've seen a lot of things in the community about, oh, it's an AI data center, it's a Bitcoin mine. I can tell you this, it is not a Bitcoin mine. We actually don't even do Bitcoin mining as a company anymore. We divested our Bitcoin mining business in 2025 to a separate, it's also a publicly traded company called American Bitcoin. Hut 8 does not mine for Bitcoin. American Bitcoin does, but Hut 8 does not. And the reason why it wouldn't work is because in a regulated service territory, the cost of power is more expensive. We really focus on Bitcoin mining is competitive in some parts of the United States, most notably Texas, and that's why I can definitively say there would never be a Bitcoin mine. In terms of what other types of compete it might be, candidly, as he said, we're in the top of the first inning here. We don't exactly know. Everyone's focused on AI right now, and that is a possibility. There's different types of data centers, as I think some of you might have read. There's AI data centers for training, which is if you're training people, how many people here are familiar with ChatGPT? So when they were developing those models, they had to train them somewhere, and they get trained in data centers. So one use application could be OpenAI ChatGPT training model. It could be an inference model, which is more after it's trained, when everyone in this room is prompting ChatGPT and asking it questions. That's pinging a server in a data center, and that's called inference. That's not actually training the model, but it's really just using it kind of on a day-to-day basis. So that's another application. But candidly, it might not be AI, whether it's training or inference at all. It could be a cloud-based data center, which is kind of like yesterday's data center, if you will, but it's still really important. And what that is more for static data, where Peter talked about earlier on, people storing pictures of their grandkids. That is a cloud-based data center where you're storing data, whether it's pictures or emails. And so that will unfold naturally as we get further along in the development. We understand the certainty and timing of the power. Hopefully we can get somewhere on the zoning, and then we'll start to engage with those commercial customers about what type of data center it might be. So that's on the application. In terms of actual investment in the community, again, it depends on who the end user is and what type of redundancy and design they're looking for. But a good estimate is somewhere between $4 to $5 billion, and that's just for the data center. That's all Hut 8 would actually own, is the land and the data center itself. We don't own the chips that go inside. That's typically the customer. They'll own, it depends on what the agreement is, but they'll own the chips, they'll own the racks, they'll own the cabinets. And so our investment is somewhere between $4 to $5 billion. But that doesn't include the investment from our tenant, which can easily be in the billions and billions of dollars. So the project in its entirety will greatly exceed $5 billion. We're planning on, we did an analysis before we came based on what we're doing in West Feliciana Parish. We're estimating that there'll be 200 full-time jobs after construction. There'll be a lot of construction jobs, and we have a slide on this, we can talk about it, but those are temporary jobs. The construction jobs we're estimating 1,500 jobs. They'll probably be around for 18 months while we build the data center. But the permanent jobs, which we're really excited to talk to you about, would be 200 full-time jobs. And they would be a mix between, just call it 100 that would be employed by Hut 8 and 100 that would be employed by our ultimate tenant. And they're high-paying jobs. And they're a mix of things like network engineers, critical infrastructure, people that monitor HVAC, cooling, plumbing. That's a big component of a data center. Is everyone, I'm sure, has put their laptop on their lap, and after it's been on your lap for 5 minutes, it gets too hot, you gotta put it down. Because the chips, they heat up and they need to be cooled. When you're running these many chips, the cooling infrastructure is really paramount. So those people that run the critical facilities end up being really important, because that is a big percentage of the CapEx that we're investing is around cooling. And I'm happy to talk more during the questions about particular jobs, and we can go into that in any depth. Riley, can you just go back? I want to make sure. In terms of economic benefit, we've engaged a company called Strategic Economic Research to help us understand the impact that we could have on the community. The construction jobs that we talked about, we're estimating to be about $540 million over an 18-month period. And the 200 full-time jobs that I was just talking about, we anticipate would be about $375 million over 15 years. There would also be considerable indirect benefits to the community. There'd be income tax paid to the state of Illinois, and obviously property tax to the community. Keep going. Do you want to talk about, what specifically a data center is?
Yeah. So I think we've hit on a lot of this, what a data center is and why it is, and kind of to further explain upon what some of Greg was mentioning about ultimately from the outside, you guys, and we'll show you some renderings here in a second, you guys will just see a really nice state-of-the-art, what looks like a warehouse facility without any of the heavy traffic that is typically associated with the warehouse facility. And on the inside, the main thing really are the server racks, which will have the chips that one of our tenants will be responsible for. In addition to that, there's the cooling facilities, which we're going to touch on here in a minute, and tell you, how we're going to do our best to be very conservative with how we use local water here in the community. And then there will be backup generators where if something happens on the power, that there will be continuous power flowing to these chips. These chips, typically, the tenants want them to be running 99.9% of the time. So our big part of our job is ensuring that there's always electricity flowing into the building. In addition to that, fire safety and security. Keep going. So yeah, we'll kind of get into what you guys can expect to see. So this is a plot of land, as mentioned, that we have under what we call a purchase option contract. So we have a couple years to actually buy the land, and again, we need to get through a lot of development efforts with you guys and the committee here tonight, as well as our vendors, before we'll actually buy the land and move this project forward. So this is a rendering of what the facility will potentially look like. Again, it's very modern looking. It'll be about 30 feet tall, and our goal is to have it pretty well covered with mature trees and landscaping, so it's aesthetically pleasing. The community and the neighbors around. I believe there's only 1 or 2 houses within half a mile of our site. But again, it's all about kind of doing good by doing right. And this is, again, what it'll look like from an overhead point of view. So as I mentioned earlier, the important part of this location is that Ameren substation on the far right, bottom right-hand corner. And so that's where the main transmission wires will connect there, and then we'll bring a smaller transmission line that will feed into the warehouses of the building. So it'll be about 3 buildings. As Greg mentioned, about 1 to 1.2 million square feet. And yeah, I think those are kind of the important parts of the site.
I would just say, right now, this conceptual rendering is 3 buildings, but it could end up being 1 or 2, but the footprint will be 25 to 50 acres and 1 to 1.3 million square feet. And the height, Peter was correct, it's 30 to 35 feet for sure. I know a lot of people had questions about water, so you want to take that, or do you want me to take it? You want to go for it?
Yeah. Water is life here in farm country, and that's something that we are very sensitive to. In data centers, there are ways that you can develop a data center that will use a lot of water. We really pride ourselves on being conservationists of water, and what we'll look to use is, which is what we're using in Louisiana, is what's called the closed loop water cooling system. So the water that we put in will continuously recirculate for 4 to 5 years, and then we'll truck it in and truck it out. So really it'll be a minimal impact on the water, on the aquifers, on any of the potable water here around the community. The one part of water that we can't get around is what we call house water. Toilets, showers, all that stuff. And we're estimating that to be about 9,000 gallons per day of water, which we'll pull from a well. So in context, we drove past a great car wash pulling into Lincoln here this afternoon. Looks pretty nice and new. That car wash, large car washes typically use about 50,000 gallons of water a day. So we are, considerably less amount of water than a lot of commercial and industrial uses for water applications in every day. And Greg, I'll let you expound upon the closed loop cooling system a bit.
Yeah, I mean, at a high level, I don't think there's much benefit in getting into it right now. We can answer in a follow-up question, but yeah, instead of using the water-cooled system where we're just pulling millions of gallons of water a day, running on that closed loop helps cool the actual servers. It's pretty simple in practice, but this is a design that we're committed to, and as Peter said, we've used it before. We're using it in Louisiana, and the draw is pretty minimal. But we can touch on it as well in the Q&A. You want me to take that one? So a lot of people have asked, well, you guys are going to pull a lot of power. What does that mean for me, one of the citizens? And so where we are in the process with Ameren is we went through a transmission planning study with Ameren. They've done all their analysis. But Ameren as a utility, they're focused on a lot of things, but one of their biggest areas of focus is about reliability. They want to make sure that power's there when the people need it, and that if we are going to if we're going to be drawing more power and there needs to be upgrades to that infrastructure in order for us to pull the power, that infrastructure is in place. So as a result of the transmission planning studies, it culminates in what's called an interconnection agreement with Ameren. And that interconnection agreement with Ameren outlays a cost that we would pay to upgrade the system. That cost is 100% paid by us. We're committed to paying those costs, but contractually obligated to pay those costs. And what we've outlined here is your rates will not go up as a result of the infrastructure that Ameren has to build out to serve our data center. And if anything, it's a positive for the community, because we like to use this bus analogy, where if you have one person riding a bus and you're amortizing the cost of that bus over one person, it's really high. But if we come in and we buy 30 seats on that bus, that gets amortized over more people and the cost per person goes down. We're just going to happen to be, in this illustrative example, we're going to happen to be 30 people. But we will 100% pay all the costs associated with any upgrades, and you guys should not see any impact related to that. I'm sure we can talk about that more in the Q&A, because I'm sure you guys all have questions. Next slide. Want to take this or want me to?
Yeah, so I think we hit on several of these points. Infrastructure upgrades with the power. We're also looking at other ways that we can increase or upgrade infrastructure, both for the benefit of our project and for the community. Whether it's roads, other parts of the water system, other just benefits around the community that will benefit our labor and all of you guys here tonight. From a business attraction standpoint, I always like to say business begets business, success begets success. And so what's happening a lot of times in these communities that are taking data centers is they're kind of serving as an anchor for growth among other businesses to come to that area. As I've hit on throughout the night, probably more than you guys have wanted to hear, business is driven by data in a lot of ways. And as that continues to grow and businesses become more and more reliant on it, it becomes attractive for them to bring their business closer to a data center to use that infrastructure. From a property tax revenue standpoint, we, as Greg mentioned, are working with a former teacher at Illinois State University who now runs a group called Strategic Economic Research. And so we've been working with him and his team for probably the better part of the last 2 months, looking at the cost buildup of our data center, looking at the breakdown of real versus personal property, and what we think the use of data center is going to be. And so we're still working through these estimates, but as we sit today, we believe that the revenue from the property tax revenue could easily exceed $50 million per year to the community over 15 plus years. So that's something that will be hopefully put to good in the community with schools and everything else that will be a benefit to everybody here tonight. In terms of job creation,
Sorry, just to be clear, I think you said over 15 years. Our initial indications of that it's going to be significant. It's going to be in 8 figures annually. And just one thing we're still working through, because the way that Illinois taxes property is a little bit different than some of the places that we've been in, like Illinois, where you have to, personal property is not taxed. So we're still going through that analysis, but it is substantial. And just order of magnitude, I'm sure if you Google our name and what we've done in previous communities, in Louisiana, the deal that we struck with the West Feliciana Parish, we worked together to come up with a structure where their current property tax revenue as a result of us being there is going to go to from 40 million to approximately 120 million. So our contribution in property taxes is going to be around $90 million. Now every part of the country is different in the way they tax things, whether you tax personal property or real property, but it would be very, very significant in terms of what it's going to do to the existing property tax base. And again, there's also going to be state income tax and corporate income tax, et cetera. So it's really meaningful, and I would encourage you guys to just take a look at what we've done in some of our other projects. I think we've covered a lot of it.
And as Mike mentioned, this presentation will be available. So this slide obviously has got a lot of details, a lot of good details that we're excited about, and so it will be available on the county website after this.
Either the Facebook page, the website, or we'll get it out there and we'll let you know where it's at.
So I encourage you to look at some of these job numbers in more detail.
And then some of our plans become more, further along in the development process. We're committed to working with you guys to help disseminate information as we get updates about the project. Next slide. You want to take it?
Yeah. So one of the other things that we're excited about to continue on with the jobs front is earlier this afternoon we met with Heartland Community College and had a very nice conversation with them, looking for collaborative ways that we can bring local employment into this new industry. So we spent a good hour with them this afternoon, and we want to do that with all of the education bodies, high schools, the other technical colleges here in town. And really it's about how can we work with you guys within the community to make you guys a part of our project, and whether it's training or education, these are really exciting jobs, and should have a very robust future as this industry continues to take off.
Why don't we just run through? I'm sure a lot of people have the same questions. So we put this frequently asked questions together just to try to hit a bunch of them before we get into the open Q&A. So what are data used for? Peter, I think you answered that. How much water will the data center use? Just to reiterate, we're committed to using that closed loop design. It will not be a bigger pool than an industrial office building, or as Peter mentioned, the car wash analogy, the car wash, busy car wash uses about 50,000 gallons a day. We expect that it will be 9,000. Again, that's just for toilets and sinks. And we would drill a well. But data centers cause noise pollution. So there's some information on the chillers that generate sound, but the takeaway for you guys is that some of the nearest neighbors are about a half mile away, and from that distance, it's about 30 to 35 dBA, which just for context is about a whisper. We've also been successful in putting up noise walls, and if we put mature trees as well, it should really be inaudible to the community. In terms of what data centers we talked about, if it will increase your electric bill, again, we can talk about that in more detail. There was a study put out by the Berkeley National Laboratory that basically just went into detail on what I was talking about, where companies like us fund the infrastructure upgrades is actually a net positive benefit for the community. The construction and additional traffic, once it's operating, it's 200 jobs. I should have said it earlier, it's 200 jobs, but it's over 3 shifts. So call it like 60-ish people at the data center at any given shift. But it's not particularly busy. During construction, there will be a lot of trucks coming in with equipment, and we've been working with the county to try to find ways to mitigate that and make sure that the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, can support that. And then another topic that I'm sure you guys might ask about is how will this impact drainage? So we've actually engaged Opinion, they're here with us tonight, to make sure that when we build this, that all the drain tile is done in an effective manner, and the commitment that we can make to the community is that your drain tile will be just as good, if not better. And so, like I said, we have Opinion here tonight if there's any questions on that, but we will get them, we've already gotten them involved to do an assessment and a mitigation process to make sure that the drain tile is just as good, if not better. But I think with that, again, I want to thank everyone for the time coming out, and we're happy to open it up to Q&A. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. We'll start with questions from the committee. Coleman?
And sorry, just one thing, commitment that I want to make to everyone in this room. Because it's early innings, we don't have all the answers to some of these questions, but if we don't, I promise you, if you give us your contact information, we will write it down and we can get with some of our technical experts and we will get back to you.
I'll start with the first question from our list here. How did you choose this particular location?
Yeah, so largely, as I highlighted earlier,
What was the question, please?
why we chose this particular location. So as I kind of mentioned, so as data centers are growing, they're popping up all over the U.S. We are very active in Texas and Louisiana and elsewhere. And so as we look across the country, we look at the electrical grid in the area, we look at the proximity to large cities, we look at how the land is, wetlands, other factors that go into what brings success to a project. And again, the access to power and the stability of the power grid is really important for us. And so as we've been working with Ameren and the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, MISO, which is the governor of all the utility in the Midwest in this area, working with Ameren, we identified this part of Logan County that there is extra capacity on the lines. And so that really was an important part of being here. Illinois is a very progressive and growing in the data center market. Chicago is obviously a major city with a lot of growth and a lot of data demand. And then the proximity to St. Louis and other big Midwest cities.
If not here, do you have a secondary location?
Yeah. What was the question?
If it's not here, do you have a plan for a secondary location?
Within Illinois,
Yes.
not current, or we do have another project outside of Chicago that we've been working on for another 2+ years in Batavia, Illinois. It's a little bit smaller. It's a different type of data center. So we do have that under development. We do not have any other active parcels of land in southern Illinois that we're pursuing for a data center at this time. That said, we are actively looking for land and power across the Midwest and Illinois.
And just to add to that, we do have developments across the country that we're looking, but we're really excited about this opportunity. And as Peter said, there's several reasons: the electrical infrastructure with Ameren, the proximity to Chicago as well. Some people know that historically there were, up until a couple of years ago, most data centers located in major data center hubs like Ashburn, Virginia, Chicago, Dallas, Santa Clara. Chicago obviously being one of them, and that proximity to Chicago is attractive because it gives us a little bit more optionality in the type of data center, as I was talking about earlier. Having that proximity to Chicago and the Carrier Hotel, which is basically like the giant point of interconnect where all the data flows through, gives us a little bit more optionality on what type of end user we could potentially attract.
Okay, I'll take a turn now. The generators, gas or diesel?
The question was, for backup generation, we use gas or diesel. So again, it's too early for us to commit without knowing the end user. They typically are either gas or diesel. All of them run a handful of hours a year. There's obligations for you to test them periodically to make sure that they can run adequately, and that's just an EPA standard. And then if there's any outages with the grid, then the backup generation would kick on. So it could be diesel, it could be gas, and it ultimately depends on the end user, but they would all be operated in compliance with state, local, and federal guidelines.
Okay, out of the 1 million to 1.3 million feet squared you're going to use, what will happen to the rest of the 250 acres? Do you have a plan for that? Or what will happen?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of just kind of common area, you know, parking lots, there'll be office, but as Greg mentioned earlier, a bigger part of it is just so we can kind of block the data center from the rest of the community. So we're not up against other people, or, you know, there's plenty of guard between where the data center is and where our property lines do.
Okay, any plans for it, pollinator-friendly stuff or anything like that?
Still early on in the process, but why we're here tonight is to hear the concerns of you guys in the community, and, you know, what is it that you guys want to see from us to make this project a success for you guys and for us.
I'm done, if we'll, oh, Mr. Coleman.
Have you considered, or would you consider, working with an architectural firm to make it look like something that you might find in the rural Midwest rather than glass and steel?
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to work with you guys proactively on the aesthetics of the data center. There's no, I mean, what's most important to us is just we have a design from square footage and a height and a redundancy and a backup generation. But if there's a paint color that you want to see, or I mean, we're happy to cooperate with you guys on that for sure.
Okay, if we could start with Mr. Callahan and then pass it to the board members. If you have any questions, please ask. Westberger? Here, please take the microphone.
Yeah, just curious about, you talked about jobs, about how much construction are these? Is there a company you're going to bring in to build these? As far as local labor, are you going to?
Yeah, so typically we end up working with nationally recognized GCs, and then they sub out a lot of the work. So that ends up just becoming a conversation between the ultimate GC that's selected for the project and then the community on how we pick local labor.
Because like the labor halls we don't have here in the county anymore. So you're going to be drawing out of labor halls in Springfield or Decatur, that type of thing, which is different counties. So we might get lucky and have some guys that pull out of that labor hall actually live in Lincoln or Logan County, but otherwise, you know, it's going to be outside the county.
That's really a part of what we're in the early stages of working on with Portland Community College. You know, and again, we want to work with some of the other educational bodies here in town, whether it's apprenticeships or whatever kind of labor program that we can help recruit and train and employ local labor. That's important to us as well.
Yeah, apprenticeships would be good, but with the restoration project and the contractor who's been working there, apprenticeships not easy to come by nowadays.
Yeah. Did you pass it with the line and pass it away?
You guys were talking about earlier with Ameren upgrades for the infrastructure for the transmission and their study and your guys' study. Have you guys reached out and actually had an official study done by MISO for grid stability?
Yeah, so thanks for bringing it up. So the way it works with Ameren is we go through their transmission planning study, we execute the interconnection agreement, or the SEGA as Ameren calls it, and then that kicks off the MISO study. And so we have not executed the interconnection agreement, and it's one of the reasons why we're here, is the interconnection agreement is going to as I mentioned before, committed some millions and millions of dollars. And so we want to get confidence that we have community support before we execute that. Once we execute that, that would kick off the MISO planning study.
Okay. So do you have a timeline when you're thinking with the interconnection agreement with Ameren or the current study that you can provide to the board from
So,
Ameren's aspect?
So I can't share the Ameren study right now. It's not executed. But the MISO planning study, what Ameren has told us historically, and we had an interconnection agreement that was tendered and ready for execution late last year. We ended up not executing on it because we didn't have visibility to the zoning. And so now that we've gotten a little further along and we're here, we've asked Ameren to re-up that interconnection agreement. And then if the results are similar to what they were a couple of months ago, we're expecting, Ameren communicated to us previously, and this is part of what they're confirming when they're dusting off their study, is that the power could potentially be available in 18 months, is how long it would take them for provisioning the power on the Ameren side. And then MISO, like I said, would do their analysis in parallel.
So is your intent to submit an application prior to the Ameren and the MISO study being completed? Or you're going to wait till all that's completed before coming in front of the board and ZBA?
We're going to do them in parallel. We need to have visibility to zoning before we can execute the site. The study is already in process, and they will tender it to us. And the way it works is they say, okay, here's your study. Here's how long it takes for us to do our work. Here's how much it's going to cost. Sign here and we'll get going.
So I have three quick questions. One, I would appreciate at the end, I know we have a lot of community members here, so we're going to try and get to all the questions, but if there's a way that we could filter questions to you, so that if somebody doesn't get a chance to have the question answered tonight, so I want to make sure we get that out there so everybody knows you will have your question answered. So let's talk about that afterwards. And so to keep it short, just quick answers. Elevator pitch, but a little bit of detail. So you've thrown a lot of numbers around. $5 billion investment, $80 an hour jobs, 200 of them. Some of that seems a little surreal. So you're in a business and you're going to make money as well in this because you're going to have a tenant. So as much as you can you walk how this is possible? How you come and say, I can put $5 billion investment here. I can pay $80 an hour for 200 jobs a year, and I can do all these other things.
Sure. I mean, I can't comment on the specifics because we don't have a commercial, but I can
understand that. That's why I said high level.
Yeah,
right?
I can use what we've announced publicly on Louisiana as helpful guide. So Louisiana, it's been announced that it's a $10 billion investment between us, HUD 8, and the ultimate tenant, which again is Google, Anthropic, and FluidStack, just for illustrative purposes. The way that it works is it's a triple net lease, typically. For folks who are in real estate, they're probably familiar with that structure, but we get paid almost like a capacity payment for furnishing that infrastructure. And it's kind of priced on a yield to cost model. So not exactly, but if I invest $5 billion, they're going to pay me X% a year in rent. Is actually so. You get up to some pretty big numbers. If I invest $5 billion and say they're going to pay 5% on that $5 billion as a cap rate, people are familiar with that. That's $250 million. One of the ways that we're able to finance these, because I'm sure where are you going to come up with $5 billion? One, we're a public company. We're about, on any given day, $5 billion market cap. We have the ability to issue equity. We have the ability to issue debt. But more importantly, if you find a strong partner that has investment-grade credit, the banks, like in Louisiana, the project that we're working on, we're working with JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, they will lend you 85% loan to value because of the strength of the underlying credit. And so on a $5 billion investment, HUD 8, because the credit is so strong from Google, is probably only going to put 20% of the equity in there. So, we're going to put $500 million of equity. And obviously $500 million is a substantial commitment, but that's how we do it. It's because the credit underlying the investment is so huge. And because of that, and some of the numbers that we're talking about, we can afford to pay those types of salaries to the people.
Fair enough, and I just saw some eyes from some
Yeah,
of the
no, I
audience,
mean,
and my eyes got big too, you know, $5 million. It's like, well, I remember playing Monopoly and having that, but you know.
I fully appreciate the numbers are staggering. And a couple of years ago, when I was doing data centers, we weren't even talking about numbers this size. It's pretty.
So my second quick question is, examples, and we'll use Louisiana as an example. So we've had other projects come in, renewable energy, right?
Yeah.
And they've been partners with the community. They've done things with the community, reinvested in the community in a number of ways. Can you give us examples of how you've done that in Louisiana, or what your plans would be to do that, or how that would unfold?
Yeah, so in Louisiana, it was a pretty bespoke agreement where we entered into a pilot agreement, which is a payment and lieu of tax, and we were just trying to solve for what the community needed. And so we, like I said, we ultimately came to an agreement where, we're not gonna tell you guys how to spend your money. So they just said, hey, this is where we need to be. They looked at the size of the investment. They tax personal property there, which is different than Illinois. And we came up with an agreement where, based on current millage rates and the amount of capital investment, they're going to get $90 million a year. And then they split that pie.
Sure, so I was talking about an additional property tax. So from our other renewable energies, they pay property tax, right? They pay tax so they have a PIN number, they pay their tax, but they've also done above and beyond, right?
Yep.
For example, we have a wind project now that donates $100,000 a year to our jail renewal project that we have going on. I'm just asking, not saying, but just asking if you have examples of how you partnered beyond just paying your obligated property tax.
Sure. So, one thing that Peter already talked about is we're in early discussions with Harlan Community College on how we do apprentices, scholarships, donating equipment. Another thing that we're in early stage conversations is I would really like this to be a land neutral, land positive development. So it's too early, but we've been talking to the county about ways that we can give back land for the benefit of the community. So we're talking about some of those ideas, but they're early stages, but things like that are actively being discussed.
Earlier, you were talking about some of the water risk concerns and utilizing a closed loop system. Can you explain more on how that system is going to be managed from environmental risk? How often would you actually have to utilize additional water to fill the system, chemical testing, things like that?
Yeah, so there's third-party vendors that manage this, and they come in and periodically check it. The loop itself probably has to be topped off every 4 to 7 years. Again, it's all outsourced to third-party experts that maintain everything in accordance with EPA standards. It's just constant monitoring and maintenance, and it's given the size of this investment, it's monitored like very frequently to make sure that it's running paramount to the cooling that is required.
What happens if the company defaults on its agreements? All of the information so far has been proposed plans. What if these things change? How would we be notified? Will the company give any guarantees?
Help me understand. Are you saying what after it's operational or before it's operational?
Before it's operational.
Before it's operational, like we said earlier, we're in the early stages, so I cannot guarantee anyone in this room that we will be able to successfully build this data center here tonight. We're just trying to get the zoning so we can make the appropriate capital investment to work with you guys, attract a world-class customer, and get it up and running. Once it's up and running, everything is in writing and is contractual. We have, using our example in Louisiana, we have an executed 15-year contract with a tenant backed by AA- credit that is required to pay as a pass-through to us that we turn around and pay to the community their property taxes. So, if you think that in this particular case, AA- credit company would default, I guess that is theoretically possible, but that would bet against Google defaulting anytime soon.
Hello, I have a couple of questions. This particular project has a pretty large footprint. Can you tell us specifically, you mentioned it could be parking lots, it could be some other things. Are you going to put renewable energy sources that would feed into your data center, like solar or wind, like I've seen in some other projects? I want to be really clear that that's stated for.
Yeah, no, we're not planning on having any on-site generation of any kind, other than the backup generation, which, as we discussed, is used sparingly just in the cases of emergencies. We will actually procure our power through MISO. So Ameren, I'm sure a lot of you guys know this, Ameren, they're the wires that run power to the end users. And for a facility like this, a large industrial user, we would probably work with a retail provider to go procure wholesale electric power through the MISO market, which is a giant pool of power that exists all the way up from, I don't have the map in front of me, but Minnesota, Michigan, all the way down to Louisiana, where they procure power that Ameren, ultimately being the load-serving entity, just brings to the data center.
So are there guarantees that for the average citizen, we wouldn't experience brownouts, blackouts, things related to that nature? And then just to dovetail, not strictly on that, but does the plant that you're generating, does it produce light pollution as well? That would be overbearing?
Sorry, the plant being the data center?
The data center, yeah.
No, I mean, we can commit to you guys that we would make sure that everything, the lights are downward facing, there's no uplighting, so there would be no light pollution. On the question, can you repeat the question on the power? Yeah. For
is there
reliability? It's on reliability,
yes,
right?
For brownouts and
So,
guarantees that the public could expect that isn't going to impact their daily life.
So that ultimately comes down to Ameren and MISO, and that's why they go through their planning process. And so I don't run the system, but that is what Ameren and MISO run their transmission planning analyses under very conservative contingency analysis. So they'll run their transmission planning studies on pretty conservative cases where they'll be like, okay, well, what happens if peak system load goes, from here to here, and these three plants are out? So I'm not the utility. I can't make that commitment, but I can assure you that Ameren and MISO do very conservative transmission analysis and power flow models.
So, have you had on prior projects experience pair rate protections of any sort that, from a supply and demand perspective, that we couldn't expect our rates to go 300% like it seems to have gone in the last year? And that hasn't even related to this data center.
Yeah, I mean, when you get your bill from Ameren, there's a cost related to infrastructure, and Ameren passes through power to the residents, and I believe that most people in this community get their actual power from the Illinois Power Authority. So I can commit that you will not see an increase on your bill related to infrastructure upgrades. I cannot control what happens to natural gas prices and all these other variables that just happen in the world every day. And that's really just a pass-through. But again, we're probably going to procure our actual power through a bespoke bilateral agreement that is not going to take away from the power that you guys are getting, the generation sources. But I cannot commit. I can't control the MISO market and gas prices and everything that goes on.
So, but have you seen that in other areas where it does impact, or I'm sure that from a comparison perspective, has that been realized in other communities that you've gone in and done?
No, I'm not aware of it.
So there's a lot of, the example with Louisiana is, are there references that the board specifically could, ask and have those types of questions, just how they have seen the impacts to the project that you just did over there? Could we engage with them?
Was that
local government? Or-
Yeah, just how that's being experienced in those
Yeah,
local
we'll be
communities.
as open and transparent as we can on that.
Yeah, I mean, we can try to facilitate some conversation, but I will say the data center in Louisiana isn't built yet. So,
Well, as for the process in particular, how
Yeah, sure.
that worked and how they're experiencing and what.
yeah, so let us take it back and we can see if we can facilitate a conversation to you guys get a better understanding. Like, for example, in that community, we built a switchyard and a substation that we're actually gonna give to Entergy as part of it, and it's similar, like, we're making the infrastructure upgrade, we're giving it back, to Entergy, and it's gonna be a ratepayer asset. But, you know, in terms of what happens to MISO with power prices, that's really like me trying to predict the weather. There's just so many variables, like, it could go down.
So this is a massive project, and you mentioned, like on the Louisiana case, you had a beautiful partner. Do you have a prospective tenant that is going to back this
Yeah.
case? You don't have that yet? When would you expect that? How long does that take to procure?
Yeah, so most customers don't want to engage with us until they know we have the power. They want to know, do you have the zoning, and do you have the power? And then if you say no, and they say, well, okay, well, come back to me when you have that, and then we'll start talking. So that's table stakes in terms of attracting a tenant.
What type of data center are you proposing here with the local weather being tornado activity? What level of protections do you have for that particular facility as a protective or a prospective client?
Yeah, so again, still very early on in all the planning and development and engineering of this project. We are working on one over closer to Tornado, in the heart of Tornado Valley, and we're, the equipment we're looking for here is all very highly rated from a wind speed perspective, 200 miles per hour wind speed ratings. So all of that stuff, all these risks, we are looking into ways to mitigate. I mean, as Greg mentioned, the amount of capital that we're putting in these projects and the loans that we're taking out from these large banks, like, we have a lot on the line to do this extremely well and do it right. So if we look at every single risk that could come up during the project and the development operation, we do everything we can to mitigate those. But it's all above ground. Correct.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we're going to invest $4 to $5 billion on the data center. As I mentioned, the ultimate tenant will invest probably $4 to $5 billion plus on the chips, and they are very, very tough on how strong that building is to withstand tornado, because they're making such a huge investment that they want to know that their investment is protected, and that's why they're paying us the rent that they're paying us to make sure that their equipment is safe.
I've got two questions. One of them piggybacks on Keenan's comment about the electrical power. You're probably not aware of this. I don't know how much you've talked to Ameren, but we actually have current issues in the Latham area with Ameren service with some of their customers that they have not been able to resolve. And I understand you guys are going to interconnect right into that substation, if that's your plan. Would you be willing, though, to assist, considering right now the major industry in Latham is agriculture, would you guys be willing to work to assist them in getting their problems resolved? I'm assuming you guys have highly trained electrical engineers on your staff that can maybe work with them and get their problems resolved. Being neighborly, is that part of something you could do, you could offer?
We're happy to have the conversation. I just need to be careful of utility regulations. I don't know how. I don't know if I can subsidize the cost over here, but I think it's worth looking into. And the biggest question that I would have for Ameren, and I can commit to come back to you, is like, if we make new infrastructure upgrades at where we're planning on interconnecting, what benefit, if any, does that have to the community? And we could definitely report back.
Okay, my second question is, we've not talked about, you've talked about the closed loop system in the water, talked about electricity. What about any type of waste products or any environmental impacts in that regard?
The only environmental impacts that you would see is from the backup generation, and that would be natural gas or diesel emissions. But again, it's all done in accordance with state, local, and federal guidelines. And it's pretty sparing because you're really only turning that backup generation on in the event of a grid outage and for testing.
Okay.
If it's okay with Mike, I think it might be beneficial to explain what the process is in this as far as the county goes and zoning. This is strictly applying for permission to build on this property. This is basically just the zoning of the land, or it may end up just being a conditional use granted to the land. Any building to be done on this, any development to be done on this has to go through this same process. You're going through the planning commission, you're going through the ZBA, you're going through the county board, all public meetings that basically we assess what the impacts are going to be. Does this meet our ordinances locally? And every stage of this goes through this process. This is just the initial phase starting this process. So they're talking about, people are worried about changes and plans and things like that. Anything that happens that changes what is basically permitted under these approvals has to go through the process again. And basically that is the point where we control what is done with this property and how it's developed. So this is not, we're going to give them approval for this zoning application, and then next week there's going to be bulldozers on the property. Basically, they're going to get, if it's approved, they'll get a conditional use or whatever on this ground that says, we approve you using this ground for a specific use. But before they develop that property, before they build anything on it, before they dig one, shovel full of dirt out of there, everything they do has to be approved through this same process. So this is not the end all on this. This is just the beginning. I just thought that was important for everybody to realize that this is not a carte blanche. Everything they do, and we're not the only people that have to permit this. They're going to have to go through the state and federal agencies on every aspect of this as far as environmental goes, stormwater, drainage, everything. So, and they will not be issued a permit until all these conditions have been met, including conditions that are added on by the county board. So I just wanted everybody to realize that that's how this process works, because I'm getting a lot of questions regarding that, thinking that this is just going to give them the ability to build this. This meeting is just for the informational, for the public to see what the data center is, how it's going to be built, how it's going to work, but this is not the permit for them to do this. This is strictly looking at the zoning on the property itself.
I have one more question.
When do you guys intend filing application to go through ZBA? I know you guys initially had one and withdrew it, so I didn't know what your new commitment is for that, or intent.
Yeah, I think depending on the feedback from this meeting here tonight, ideally we'd like to get that in February. Whatever the proper process is, whatever the proper use is, whether it's a rezone or conditional use. We've had different discussions on that topic with the county, and whatever recommendation is recommended to us, we'd like to proceed in that direction, as soon as February.
Okay, the board is weighed in. Now I'm going to do something here a little strange, as long as my committee consents. As you know, we have one washroom in this building. It's labeled for ladies. Mr. Ferris, any way you could radio down and ask him to change that to the men's room for the next 10 minutes? So that the gentlemen don't have to trek outside in the cold and the dark. So, without objection from the committee, I'd like to have a 10-minute recess. This is the public comment section of a committee meeting. And under public comments, we give each person who wishes to speak 3 minutes. Now, you may ask questions. They may or may not get answered depending on the knowledge level of those you're asking them to and the question you're asking. The law says you can come up here and talk about anything for 3 minutes, and I really thought the Blackhawk game was good, so if anybody wishes to talk about that, I'd be glad to hear it. But we do ask a mode of civility, and you know, we're here in the beginning stages of this. Right now, hopefully, we've gone from a lot of unknown unknowns to known unknowns, where we can ask intelligent questions and get intelligent answers rather than going with a shotgun approach that just says we don't know anything about it, so we want to know everything about it. So if you'll please form some orderly fashion, I'm sure you all can figure that out. Now, they're going to kick us out of here at about 9:30. So, well, I know. They get bells and whistles that go off at 9:30, so we need to get out of here. If we do not make everybody, we will recess the meeting to the call of the chair, reestablish a meeting date, and then go ahead and continue the public comment. So without further ado, I guess, Doctor, you're first in line. Go ahead.
I have 2 questions for the board, just so that you can think about them and ask them, talk about them, and then 2 for the gentleman. For the board, as a medical provider, we need to have some sort of assurance for medical fragile people who are on ventilators, who are on CPAPs, who are on LVADs to make their heart run. If there are brownouts, and they have 99.9% assurance that their people they're renting to have rights to that, where does that leave the people who really need it for life? I'd rather have a ventilator work than have a data center work. So that's something we need to talk to Ameren about. And they're going to do production costs with Ameren. Where does that leave us? Because they don't know anything about that. That's a question you guys really need to talk about with Ameren, because they're going to put the roads in, they're going to put the infrastructure in. That doesn't tell me that my rates aren't going to triple. For you, your team, you said that it's a closed water loop. Gets trucked out every 5 to 7 years. What's it contaminated with? Where does that go? What kind of containment, what kind of environmental risks are involved in with that? And if the data center is no longer in production or in use in 15 years because it's obsolete, what happens to all those chips, all of the lithium, the cadmium, environmentally and from a health perspective? Thank you.
Real quick on that first part, so Ameren does have a duty to serve its house and its ratepayers above its commercial industrial. So we are second in line to you guys. That situation that you described, it would be very unlikely to happen. And to correct the uptime, the uptime was a comment of, that's kind of why we have some backup generation. Because if there is strain in the grid, and Ameren will shut us down and keep homes, hospitals, you guys are the priority 100%. And they're legally, bound by that. So I do want to just make sure that information is correct.
On the closed loop system, there's a couple different solutions that you can use when it comes to water. A common solution is to do water with a glycol mix. And again, that's pre-mixed and delivered by a vendor and maintained by a third-party vendor. And when it's time to drain that loop, they drain it in accordance with all state, local, federal EPA standards, and they truck it away. So it's a little bit too early to know exactly what type of water solution mix, but if it is that glycol mix, it's all done under a heavy scrutiny with a third-party vendor. And then your question about retirement obligations, typically much like when you leave an apartment, you're kind of obligated to keep it room swept. There's similar obligations in those leases that require that they take out all their equipment and dispose of it in a responsible manner.
Okay, so, I'm sorry. So my question, I'm not as smart as she is, so my question is this. Currently, the electrical system that we're on with Ameren, a lot of people in the Lincoln area have a program where it's a set amount. We're not those people. We actually pay according to consumption. Like as far as we get high alert warnings and we get told, hey, the power's gonna go up from 3 o'clock until 6 o'clock or what have you. So then we fluctuate our usage so that we don't consume as much power at that time. And I understand what you're doing, that you're going to pay for all of that infrastructure to be put into place. But once that's done, that doesn't change that we're going to be consuming. And so how many days are we going to get high alert warnings that there's a high consumption of power, and it's going to be because of the data center that we're going to get these warnings, that it's not actually that they're, you know, with the announcement. I understand what you said about the bus, but this is different. And then that's my question to you, and then I have to the board. First of all, thank you everybody for your service. I think that not only in zoning, and I understand that this is zoning right now, but I think that the board needs to be very clear that we have things set in place. For example, they talked about, you know, talking to the community colleges. Are there going to be scholarships that could be offered? Are these things that the board can say, we want these things. We want to know that we're going to invest in our community. Are there going to be, we know what happens. We don't have a lot of the highly skilled labor here. We have some. The majority of work comes from Texas, it comes from Indiana, it comes from Ohio, it comes from other states. Is there any kind of guarantee that the board is going to require that they utilize local construction or local trades as much as possible? And I think it's very important. And in the event that it does become obsolete, is there a way that there could be something put into the wordage of the contract that allows them to build, and this goes beyond zoning, is there a way that they can put into the contract that there's a fund that's set aside, and that in the event that they do vacate that space, what needs to be done to bring that space back to usable land for farming or what have you? Is there going to be a fund that they're going to have to put money into that's going to sit in there that we're going to be able to utilize that? I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but we literally, in this area, we literally have the best farmland in the entire world. So we don't want to destroy
I want to give a brief history lesson.
Real quick on the power price one. So the interesting thing about electricity markets, and it's Williams, correct? No, Dale, excuse me, sorry. We were talking a little bit. Dale works for a power generating plant. And so power demand really since the year 2000 until maybe about 2 years ago was basically flat. There was no growth. And at the same time, there was a lot of policy that drove investment and development of these wind farms and solar farms, which due to some of the ways they were financed and subsidized, made it uncompetitive to continue to operate gas and coal in what's called traditional baseload. So a lot of those power plants, there's been a lot of retirements. I think we were talking about that earlier on. Some of the plants that have been retired in Illinois over the last 5 to 10 years. Some of them, for the right reason, air pollution, that's obviously not good to be putting that up. But just the way the power market has been and the way the policy has been, there has not been a lot of growth of new baseload power generation because there hasn't been a lot of growth in demand. So now what's going on with data centers and AI and cloud is as new demand comes on, the groups and companies that build these power plants have incentive to build more power plants. So in a way, there is a scenario that our project, more power plants, more, whatever the type of power that is generated, more supply comes to the market, and that there is a chance that I could lower the pricing pressure that you're seeing today. You know, as we sit today, it's just. Yeah, I understood. I mean, I understand. My bills are certainly going up at home as well. But I will say that the new development of new supply of power generation was basically stagnant outside of solar and wind. And solar and wind are good, but they're intermittent and they cannot be baseload power generation. So as projects like ours come online, there's incentive for new supply of baseload power generation to come online. So I can't tell you what the outcome's going to be, but more supply will be coming to the market.
I'm sorry, what was your name, sir? Jonathan. Your other question about you're required to curtail or stop using power.
Right, we do it on our own.
Yeah.
So they let us know, hey, there's going to be a lot of power consumption from this time to this time. We get a call from them, and they tell us. So then we change our usage. Like we walk on our dryer, we would walk through this. But my worry is that it's going to be all the time. It's going to be high usage because high usage.
Yeah. Do you know? I'm familiar with the similar programs where I live. Do you know the name of that program?
You know what? We were sitting there trying to write my name. I mean, there is a name for it, and I just can't remember.
We can look into it and figure the name of that program because the devil's in the details on how that program works. But as Peter was saying, typically, you might know more about this than me, but typically there's priority to residential and critical, hospitals, etc. I just would need to look up to figure out what the details of that program are, and then we could get back to you whether or not it would impact it. Was there anything else that we didn't hit on?
Well, the board doesn't need to talk. I'm sure that you guys are all aware of what I said, but I'm just saying that we need to be we only get one chance to do this.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes, power smart pricing.
Now, let me ask the public, especially if you want an answer back, we have a difficult time knowing who you are. So if you expect to get something back, state your name.
Rebecca Drake, thank you for this opportunity. I want to give just a brief history lesson. In 1988, there was a campaign to stop a proposed nuclear waste dump here in Logan County. And why, we asked Logan County, why was it going to be here in Logan County? Because Logan County is the home of the richest prime farmland in the state of Illinois. And with a rigorous campaign, with an active committee who studied the issue, and we issued petitions across Logan County, and the proposed plan was vetoed by the Logan County Board in response to community pressure. Secondly, the tourist coal mine came into Logan County in 1982. It was a subsidiary of the Shell Oil Company. I couldn't get the information of what the initial purchase of land was for the tourist coal mine. But in 1916, they purchased an additional 300 acres of farmland. And it was officially closed in 2025 because of the loss of their final final fund that they had with the Springfield company. And so that the acreage of the coal ash that is now piled over former acres and acres of prosperous fields in Elkhart as from that that tourist coal mine business, as the business is gone. But there are those acres and acres of farmland that are sitting underneath all those ash, yeah.
The coal ash ponds?
Yeah. So now we have the wind farms that came into Illinois in 2025. And so I really can't get a feel for how much farmland has been taken out of production in just bits and pieces for the structure sites and the lanes that have been built for those towers. And I know the lures of the monetary benefits have been too good to resist. But man, look around Logan County at night, and it's become a red light district.
Ma'am, your 3 minutes has expired.
I know.
Would you be kind enough, if you'd like, to type that up and send it to me? We can see if we can get this whole statement included in the record.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I think we should touch base. I think it would be helpful if maybe we set up an email address. Can you guys hear me? That people could maybe send us questions and then we can just respond directly. If that works. But to answer her question, I understand about the coal ash ponds, and that's a common problem for former coal plants. There is no hazardous waste that comes off of a data center, so I don't expect that will be a problem. However, I am sensitive to the fact that the agricultural land is really rich and it's a way of life for people here. And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, we have opinion here tonight to try to figure out ways that we can make sure that the drain tile works seamlessly, and if anything is going to improve property deals in the community. And then also we've been talking to the county about ways that we could potentially give back land, not this particular land, but other land in the community that can be used for just community benefit. It's too early to say what form that could take, but it's something that we've been actively having conversations and would be welcome to try to figure something out there.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Cody Sparks. My question is, there was a quote in an article from the Illinois Times by HUD-8 in regards to data centers that states, the revenue they contribute often exceeds the cost of serving them, which can help spread the utilities' fixed costs over a larger base. What exactly does that mean in regards to residential costs for the rest of us?
So, like I was mentioning earlier, if you look at your bill, there's different line items on it. And so I haven't seen one recently, but usually there's the energy component, which is a pass-through. Then there's taxes and fees, and there's other things related to them deploying CapEx to fix their system. Because remember, Emeren doesn't produce generation. They don't produce power. They just build the infrastructure to serve the power to the end users. And so what was meant by that is that if we're investing a lot of that CapEx to upgrade the infrastructure, we're paying for that 100%. And oftentimes, if we're taking that on 100%, that can kind of be amortized amongst a larger pool of people and should do no harm and maybe even potentially be a net benefit to you guys on that particular line item of the bill.
Thank you.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Sergeant First Class Retired Kevin Kirk. I am not a speaker by any means, so we'll just take that into consideration. I appreciate you gentlemen, ma'am, coming out, but I hope that this is the one and only time that we get to meet you folks, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one in this room who's not okay with this at all. I have done 4 tours overseas. I have moved to this community 5.5 years ago, to get away from craziness, to get away from big life, to get away and find a place where I can be calm and I can have my family safe. And I found it here, 2 miles away from where you guys are proposing this. This is going to be in my front yard, 2 miles away. I can see that substation. They leave lights on all the time. I call them all the time. I haven't turned it off. Just because I don't want that. I moved out to the country for a reason. And that reason is not to have a company come in and just destroy all that peace. Those who are not okay with us being here to stand up, and the applause has already took care of that. I mean, there are security concerns with me being military. I think security first. I also think about my well. We've been in a drought. I've had 2 truck. Thank God I'm a truck driver and I can haul my own water in, but I've had to truck my own water in to put water in my cistern because we ran out of water. All right, and that's just been this past 2 years I've had to do this. I don't like doing that. If there's also power issues. Man, you're talking about life-sustaining stuff, and that is far beyond what I'm talking about. But my well water is run by power. If I don't have electricity, I don't get power to run my well. I can't get water. So we have water issues, we have power issues, and I'm going to try to be as respectful as I can. But what's really bothering me is this is already being talked about like it's already a done deal.
Yep.
And that's how we feel. Every one of these folks out here are my neighbors. Many of these people here have helped me in the past 5 years that I've been here. And if this is my moment, I can help them out a little bit, I'm going to. But I have these people here I owe my sanity to right now. And I want to keep it that way. So again, I thank you for your time coming out. I wish you no ill, but I hope this is the only time we meet. Thank you.
I don't know if there's a specific question that we can answer, but
There wasn't, but thank you.
yeah, but I mean, first and foremost, thank you for your service. That's, greatly appreciated, that for the sacrifice that you made for the country.
Okay, next speaker, please.
My name is Dayton Keys. I live in southern Logan County on the corner land, out in the country myself. So you guys came in here talking about small town. We're not buying that. I don't like anything having to do with this. Every single one of these data centers that I've looked up on, the numbers don't add up to anything that's good for the community. Water's used, electricity goes up every single time. A lot of smoke and mirror answers about, oh, well, they could add more plants later on. They could put more base load, whatever. It's a lot of gray area. We don't like it. And I do have a question for you, though. So you talked about a merger you guys had earlier. Well, you guys had a securities fraud class action lawsuit filed against your company for it. So if your company lies to its own stockholders, then why should we trust you?
We can get back to you with some formal information because I'm not particularly aware of the case, but there are a lot of law firms. There are a lot of law firms that go around trying to get class action lawsuits just to get firms to settle. I mean, if you get your name, I can look into it a little bit more, but there's a lot of lawyers that make a living at going out and making class action lawsuits.
Your data center guy, Google.
If you can get your name, then we're happy to get back to you.
Okay, next question.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Rachel and I live in Latham. And I want to say that none of these questions are meant to be adversarial to you. I appreciate you being here, we're all people. But I do live in Latham, so I do have some concerns. First off, how many generators do you estimate would be there for backup generators?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the industry has evolved historically. For every 100 megawatts of data center capacity, it would typically be 100 to 200 megawatts of backup generation, depending on what the customer wanted. What we've seen in the space more recently is that customers have gotten comfortable with less backup generation. And I think in Louisiana, it's actually somewhere around like 10 to 50 megawatts of backup generation.
And how many generators is that?
So it depends on
Okay,
what.
can I just interject? I'm sorry. There is a data center proposed in Sangamon County that is approximately the same size, and they have gotten a number of over 300 backup generators. Those generators have to be tested 30 minutes every month. If we take 300 divided by 30, which is the number of days in the month, that gives us 10 generators that have to be tested in 30 minutes. That equals about 5 hours a day if you did a sequence of generators running just for testing. That is noise that we will hear. You mentioned earlier that the site is 3 miles from Latham. It is not. A simple Google Map search will show you that it is 1.5 to 2 miles from Latham. I can see the site from my house. My house is actually probably one of the tallest homes in Latham, 30 feet, which is approximately the size that you said that your data center would be. I will have direct view. I don't know if you've ever been to Latham. Have you? How many trees? Do you know how many trees are between Latham and the proposed site?
There's not many.
There's 0. There's 0 trees. There's nothing to stop the noise. And a simple Google search will tell you that noise from data centers, from cooling towers and other things travels 2 to 3 miles. And the other thing I want to mention is you mentioned DBA noise. My concern is with DVC noise, which is the low frequency hum that affects people. It is 24/7. People cannot sleep. It causes anxiety. There's no way to stop this noise. It is a noise that is felt and not heard. If it can go through walls, if it can go through trees, it is torture. Torture has been used, sound has been used for centuries as torture. This would be torture to the people of Latham.
So to answer your question, this backup generation first, I'm not avoiding the question, but it depends on the size of the backup generator. They come in different sizes. You could do a 1 megawatt, you could do 2.5 megawatts, so that's what impacts it.
I understand that. My other thing is, if you've ever been to Latham, you know that it's windy. We've had 4 confirmed tornadoes in the last 4 years. My house has been damaged by 2 of those. Our power goes out a lot. A lot. So those generators will be running a lot. And we will hear them a lot. We live in Latham because we like the quiet. We don't want a big, huge industrial thing where we can see just down the road and hear and not be able to sleep. I'm worried about my 9-year-old daughter not being able to sleep and having anxiety issues because of the noise. And there needs to be a noise study, not only just on the amount of noise, but how does wind affect noise? Do you know that wind can affect how wavelengths travel? So that needs to be studied because we are downwind.
Thank you, Mel.
Downwind.
Yeah, and so yes, we will do a formal noise study, but other things that we've done in other communities, we've put in sound walls. We plan on putting them in church trees as well, as we mentioned, all to try to mitigate any sounds that people would hear. But based on what our previous data centers and those studies, is that it would be 30 to 35 dBA, which is about the size of a whisper. But thank you for raising the question.
Please go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Kurt Vogelhall. I've lived in this community since 1976, where I started teaching biology. My wife, she taught lower grades. She also taught me to retire in 2012, so that was good. I'm a little concerned with your endeavor. I do like to invoking Alan Turing.
Sir, turn that mic up so we can.
Alan Turing is famous for the Turing test, which in a box you asked questions, and the questions were supposed to be such that you could perceive whether the person or the machine was in the box answering those questions. Kind of like we reached that point. It's money. 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 There's so much money. Makes me want to go out and buy a lottery. Also trust. Hut 8, you mentioned Hut 8 in respect to that term. I understand there's only 3 working facilities in the United States right now under Hut 8. And one's called Alpha in Niagara Falls, which is currently closed. So it puts you down to 2 in Texas, Salt Creek, King Mountain. All 3 have less than 500 megawatts of power. I went trying to determine how many non-skilled workers work at those facilities. And I kept getting back, they won't disclose that information. I'm wondering what that is. My real question concerns the closed loop system. that requires an initial fill, from my understanding, which amounts to your site, 350,000 gallons of water, potable water. But no, it's treated water, it has to be deionized, correct? It has to be, there has to be additives added so that you have a non-corrosive element, and there's additives to prevent evaporation. But like a perpetual motion machine, there's no such thing as a completely closed system, so it has to be reinfused. There's a loss of about 5% from what I understand. I did some of this research, by the way, on AI. And that 5% represents 17,500 gallons. So my question is, how much does that cost? And don't tell me it's a third party, you know, because you have to pay that cost. Who pays it? And you know, because it's either you or some mega company like Meta or Amazon, or whoever's funding you guys. And where is the water coming from?
Okay.
You say it's trucked in, but that doesn't tell me where it comes from.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay?
Reached the 3 minutes, let him answer that, okay? Thank you.
I want to make sure I hit on all your questions. So on the facilities that HUD operates today, Alpha is in upstate New York. It is not operational, so yes, because the power costs are too high. That was one of the first sites that we built. And it's just candidly, National Grid's power prices have gone up too much to make it economic. It's also a different type of data center. We don't do Bitcoin mining ourselves, but we host a Bitcoin miner there, and it just is not economic. So that's Alpha. You're right, we have a site in Keenum, it's operational. We have a site at Salt Creek, that's operational. We have a site in Texas, Vega, that's operational. So there's 3 in Texas. We have a site in Alberta called Medicine Hat, that's also operational. And then we have several data centers that do not host basic mining, which is for Bitcoin, that is focused on actual data centers that run from Ontario to Vancouver. So we do have several data centers. I'm not sure who you reached out to about how many people each employ, but if you give us your name and contact information, we can get back to you. I don't really think that is a...
I was trying to find out how many non-skilled workers, because it seems like most of the workers are going to be highly skilled, highly trained.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, give us your name and your contact information, and then we can get back to you on the job numbers. But I would also just emphasize that it's a different type of data center than what we're building in Louisiana, because the cooling systems and the redundancy is a lot lower, so it doesn't employ as many people as what we're building in Louisiana or what we would do here. But happy to get back to that. What else? What were the other ones?
I was wondering where you're drawing water from that has to be replenished.
So candidly, I don't know.
It's coming from somewhere.
Because it's simple, because I don't know who the tenant is going to be. And so ultimately, when the tenant comes in, they're going to have certain specifications on what type of mix. You're right, and I touched on it earlier. The mix is usually a mix between water and a glycol solution, but depending on what the requirements of the tenant is going to drive where we actually get that. But it's not going to come from local water.
Okay, ma'am, would you please?
Yeah, my name is Emily. I am youth of the Logan Committee. I'm so sorry. I have a few critiques of AI data centers and like living near one as a whole. Based on like what I have found, we know that other communities living near other centers have had adverse experience. Like in Georgia, their residents reported having no running water in homes. Like in their homes, they have no water. I don't have to tell you why that might be a problem for us. In fact, according to the Environmental Energy Study Institute, large data centers can consume up to 5 million gallons of water a day, which obviously we are a big agricultural community. I think that could really jeopardize our world as we know it. I think there is like a place for data, obviously, in our world and our growing technology, but I don't think it belongs here. and no offense to you guys, I don't trust large corporations. There's no way for us to hold you all accountable. There's no way for us to really know you guys. And I think it's threatening and it's scary. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out and thank you for the question. On the water, it's a closed loop system, and that's something that we would be fine to contractually commit as part of permitting. That is one of the obligations that we have to uphold to in order to get the permitting that's required to operate the data.
Okay, please, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Kelly Cubberly. I'm from Mount Pulaski. I attended Mount Pulaski High School. At the age of 18, I joined the military. I enlisted in the Army. I served 3 years honorably, got out, and attended the University of Hawaii, where I studied economics with a focus on international policy and globalization. A couple years after that, I got recruited to work in IT, and for the past 16 years, I've been in IT. And so, when I say I've been in IT, I've been in many different roles, sales and leadership roles for major, Fortune 500 companies. And when I saw the Illinois Times break the story, I was shocked. When I read 500 megawatts, I was absolutely shocked because of my almost 16 years of being in IT. The type of data centers that I've seen over and over and over again, I'm sure you're well familiar with, right? They're housed inside of police stations, fire stations, community health centers. This is not a normal data center. These did not exist a few years ago. I heard you say that, correct? So this type of data center is nothing more than tech billionaire investment, okay? I did spend a lot of time, and this means a lot to my family. My family is right here. We're from Logan County. We've been in Logan County since before Abraham Lincoln, since before the Civil War. So this place is the only place that I will ever consider home. And I took a lot of time to look at all of the pros and the cons of your project, okay? So just to highlight the pros, jobs, that's really important to us. Job training, partnering with Heartland Community College. The possibility of advancing technology and AI could be a pro, could be a con. So let me kind of go over some of the cons. As you already heard tonight, the loss of farmland, right? Another tech billionaire flop. So, and when I say tech billionaire flop, I mean like something like Builder AI. That was the biggest tech flop in 2025 with a $1.3 billion flop. And so a lot of concern with our community, right, is that when HUT 8 is no longer here, when Peter and Greg are no longer employed with HUT 8, right, Logan County is still going to be here, my family's still going to be here, and so it comes with a lot of risk for us. Now, the biggest takeaway that I came out of corporate America, my first 10 years of being in IT, was knowing your brand. As a leader, I was told constantly.
Please sum up.
Okay.
Let her finish.
No.
Yeah.
3
She can have
minutes.
my 3 minutes.
Please sum up.
You can have my 3 minutes. She can have my 3 minutes.
And please take a seat.
Thank you. As a leader in any corporate America company, I think knowing your brand is absolutely essential, and it was something that us leaders talked about often. And so when you think about what is the brand of these tech billionaires, right? Like Meta, who is funding HUT 8, like BlackRock, who also is somewhat funding HUT 8. And even though you're...
Sorry, just to be clear, BlackRock and Meta are not.
There's no, okay, so there was some information out there online that they had a 7% stake or more in HUT 8.
So Meta or BlackRock?
Meta.
Meta does not have a stake.
Meta did not invest any money into HUT 8's
No.
AI development.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, but I get your point. If BlackRock as a large money manager probably does have a stake in Hut 8 that is in an iShares account that, you know, people have no 401k, so maybe, but Meta, no. But I take your point.
So
Sorry.
so we're talking about brand, okay? And so you come here, thank you for being here, by the way, and you come here with your plan for the well, your plan for, you said global preferred contractors. And so kind of what's missing is like the lack of community involvement. And if community is really important to you, what I would like to suggest is like a 1% earnest fee or some type of contingency written if you do end up building this facility, where that 1% would go to a new water treatment facility and other public projects. So lastly, Hut 8, this is, and my message to your executive leadership team is, this isn't just about big data centers, but this is a possibility to make a big impact. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out, and honestly, I think some of those ideas are great. And we're talking to the community and commissioners about how we could do something like that. Like I said, being land neutral, being land positive, scholarships, you know, apprenticeships, like we are relying on doing something, but one of the things that we just have to do is get a little bit further along and then figure out like what is a win for the community. Like I said, in Louisiana, we structured a pilot agreement, a payment in lieu of tax, and that community is going to end up getting $90 million a year. They decided that they want to split it a third between their school district and the jail and then the general community fund. So I think it's a great idea, and that's what some of the property tax and maybe some of the other things that we're trying to explore could actually go to the community and give back. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Okay, please, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Allison Isley. I live here in Lincoln. Thank you for coming out and talking to everybody. Because transparency is important, right? I had one big question, but I actually have two that came up as you were talking while I was up here. You opened the whole night telling us that you're not a Bitcoin mining thing, but I want to clarify that there is a difference between Hut 8 and who you let into your facilities, correct? Because you just admitted like 5 minutes ago that they do Bitcoin mining out of one of your facilities. So just because you don't doesn't mean the people that you let in maybe will end up using it for those purposes. And then with that, how can we be sure that you're going to choose a tenant based on our community's best interests and not on your bottom line? My bigger question, I guess, the AI industry is expanding at an incredible rate. Most experts are saying it's only a matter of time that we're probably going to see an AI bubble burst. We saw it with the .com bubble burst. When that happens, there's unpredictable shutdowns, abandoned infrastructure. You can ask anyone in Lincoln. We know what happens on a smaller level when businesses fold and the investors walk out and we're left with what's by the tracks and nobody can come in because there's too much left over to take responsibility for. Who's going to be responsible for the infrastructure of this immense structure, which, as we pointed out, is going to cover up acres of the best farmland in America? If you fold and you can't sustain a facility, how is that going to get rectified, and how are we going to get our land back? Or are we just left with a big, giant, useless facility that no one can move into?
Thank you for the question. So yes, you're right. Our facilities in Texas, we don't own the Bitcoin miners anymore, but we host Bitcoin miners in our Texas facility because our big business is we want to own the data center and we want to own the land and the access to power. And an example of our Texas and then the New York instance that it's actually not operational right now, we do lease to Bitcoin miners. The big difference in Texas is that the power is cheap enough to make Bitcoin mining economic because it doesn't get served through a regulated utility. And so this particular data center, as well as our one in Louisiana, I mean, we'd be fine to agree contractually that it would not be a Bitcoin mining facility. It's a really easy ask and an easy gift for us. And sorry, was there another question?
Yeah, to the bubble question.
Yeah.
So, you know, as we kind of highlighted with our project in Louisiana, we had to go to banks to get loans for, you know, a large percentage of the total project cost. But we could not get those loans without contracts from the tenants that we got. that guarantee they're gonna pay us X amount of dollars for X amount of years. So that, you know, that's how we try to mitigate the fears of bubbles, is we're not gonna build this without a guaranteed customer and guaranteed revenue. If that customer says, hey, we don't wanna use this anymore, they're still going to pay us, and then that money will flow through the property taxes. But, you know, there are mitigations against that.
Yeah, just to put a finer point on it, there's a lot of people that you get a quote guarantee from, but what does it actually mean? And so that's what we did at our other facility in Louisiana, is we went after one of the strongest balance sheets in the world that can backstop all the credits. And typically in any of these big leases, like I mentioned earlier, there's obligations that if they retire, that things go back to the way they were. And I think you could talk about this a little bit more, but under the conditional use permit, I think that if, depending how the wording works, that if that the project is abandoned,
There's what's called a decommissioning plan. That has to be approved as part of the condition. So basically, you've got a bond or letter of credit there to basically, that's for the life of the property, that basically says if it's abandoned or whatever, that money can be accessed by the county for decommissioning the property.
if we are the ultimate tenant, doesn't make good on what we said we were gonna do. Yeah, so great question. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know, did everybody get that? Mr. Green is the last speaker of the night, so I'm sure he'll reiterate that, if you would, sir.
Well, greetings to the Logan County Board, and I thank you for this opportunity this evening. I appreciate y'all. Thank you to the board. I'll just start my speech.
You hold it in your hand, you want?
That's all right. I'll just bend over a little bit. Decisions made today and the coming year are going to institutionally shape not only the United States, but also across and around the world as well. Our elected officials who sit before us and represent us, we ask of you to make the most absolutely morally convicted decisions possible about everything involving and surrounding data centers and the deployment of artificial intelligence. This rate at which the public is either not knowingly or unknowingly volunteering personal information to be stored in these data centers with or without their consent is not just stunning, but it's more like it should be setting off alarm bells. I do not consent. Now, that has been addressed. This form of data collection very well could and probably does violate our Fourth Amendment rights, no matter how little or extensive. What concerns me more is how much money has been and is going to be profited by corporations for profit from collection of sales and personal data without the proper guardrails in place and with or without their public consent. Before legislators even act. The data being collected is everything from the food we eat to everything that we like, share, subscriptions online, and simply just traveling down the road. This information will be stored in these data centers. I do not consent. In short, we have become consumers being consumed by receiving nothing for value for the information that we voluntarily submit for corporations' profit. The facts of the matter involving data centers and the forced information of artificial intelligence is very simple. We actually have no guardrails in place to secure personal sovereignty for our citizens from anyone overreaching on personal liberties. Due to this common infrastructure, we're putting the cart before the horse here. I would suggest that all stop at the build out of any and all things data centers, AI, until we can put this proper safeguard in place. One thing that is being suggested is an Internet Bill of Rights to protect each citizen from a system that requires no food nor sleep. Proper planning with the utmost minimal environmental impact, if any, for the local ecosystems in the area of where these data centers are to be located will be crucial for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a very significant window of historical measure. And as our elected officials, it is now your duty to solidify where freedom survives and the whole world thrives.
Thank you, sir. I didn't think there was a question in there. It was a good statement, but it wasn't a question. So, unless I missed something, did I miss a question?
There was questions in there.
Well, yeah, but they're far above my pay grade at the moment.
Okay, well, thank you for addressing. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Good evening, Logan Zoning Board and HUD. My name is Dan Hawk, and I represent the Latham Park District. I'm a trustee there. long-term resident of Latham, 200 years, family 200 years
Yeah, we'll
plus.
have Mike closer.
Okay. And I got 4 questions in one statement. The first statement is Latham Fire Protection Districts and its neighboring towns, they're volunteer organizations. We don't have any paid firemen. Your nearest paid firemen and EMTs are 18 to 20 miles away from this location. So I just wanted you to make you aware of that. And one more part on that, you know, a lot of these volunteer organizations 20, 30 years ago, when we had a lot of infrastructure and revenue in town, we had people that worked in town, so we had 30, 25, or 30 members per station. Now we're down to 10. So I want to make you aware of that. You're going to have 60 people per shift working in this building. And that really kind of runs into one of my questions is what kind of hazards do they run into on a day-to-day basis that the fire districts in the area need to know about? Second question, or if you want to go, you want to answer that, or?
That might work better while they're fresh in mind. I've stopped your clock.
Okay.
You want to answer that?
Well, do you want to use your, I don't want to cut into his time. Do you want
No,
to?
I've stopped with
Oh,
that.
you are? Okay, I mean, there's no more, I understand that, like, if you're bringing in an investment of this size, that there's probably going to have to be an investment in the community for fire. But in terms of individual risk for a data center, I don't think there's any incremental risk more than any other industrial, building that is being used. But obviously, like, I'm hoping we can have this conversation. Like it does warrant. Oh, sorry, can you? It does warrant a conversation about beefing up the first responders for sure.
It's definitely a safety factor in our minds.
Yeah, 100%. I'd welcome that conversation with you guys.
Okay, I'm sure that'll be part of conditional use.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
My second question is if this fire department's prepared for the worst case scenario, whether it's going to happen or not. What do we put out at data center where these are computer chips? I don't assume we can use water. Do we use foam or do we use water? Or how do we put this thing out? It's just a viable question that, would be in a fireman's head.
Sure. I mean, I'm going to have to work with the responders to understand that these are different types of fires that cause different things that we put out. But yeah, I mean, agreed, 100%.
So this building's 30 foot tall and several football fields long. So that's a big interior space when you have a problem inside. And you've got a lot of combustibles in that building, and metals and other things that we would definitely, fire plants and things I'm sure we would come about. But I don't know how to necessarily access the roof. I mean, you're 30 foot, that's the tallest ladder we got. And that's the end of it. 30 foot's the end. You'd like to have about 5 foot above that. So it's a big, big building, bigger than any building in our county. So that's a question that we would have to have answered before it would be built in order for the fire districts to help enforce public safety and worker safety. So do you have any previous fire plan access on how you gain access to roofs, and what happens if there is a fire?
Dan, that's going to be part
Dan,
of
how many
conditional
trucks do you
use.
have?
That's,
How many trucks do you have? 7?
yeah, we're not going to, Dan, could you submit those in writing? You're a public official, and we'll get back to you.
Okay, I will. I know a few
We're
of
trying to
you.
get everybody
Yeah,
done by the bewitching hour.
It's a great question, but that is dealt with as part of the permitting process,
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Oh, yeah, we've done that with other facilities, and we'll do this here to make sure safe.
My last one was how many responses do you have a year? How many calls on average on the data center? I know you don't have many, but what is that average? What are we looking at here? With 60 people per shift in an aging building. It's only new for a year.
Yeah, so we can give us your contact information. We can give you some data on the data centers that we have operational. But again, those are for different compute purposes. And the one in Louisiana, we can maybe see what we can share on the fire plan and what we did in that community with the first responders to make sure that there was adequate first response equipment and staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Williams, a lifelong Latham resident. My first comment is for the board. From all initial reporting, it seems that any tax benefits would go to the Mount Pulaski School District. And as was mentioned earlier, a hum is a distinct possibility despite their occurrences. All reporting shows that it is a possibility. So with the hum, there is also a risk of issues developing in children, anxiety, health issues, things like that, that will be required to be dealt with at a school level. Latham residents are not in the Mount Pulaski School District. They're in the Warrensburg Latham School District. What assurances or ideas you have that ensure that the Warrensburg School District is going to receive some of that tax money to actually help the kids that are dealing with it? My question is to you. You keep saying 200 permanent jobs. How many of those are remote? Are any of them going to stay in Latham?
The 200 jobs would be on-site jobs. There's support remote staff, like me and Peter and Riley, but that's not counted in the 200 jobs. Those are specifically on-site employees. And we're working with, Harlan Community College, et cetera, to try to figure out how we can get as many people in the community working at the data center.
Secondary question. It was also mentioned that tornadoes are a severe risk here. We also deal with mine subsidence issues. So what are your assurances that any development isn't going to disrupt the mine?
I'm sorry, can you mine what?
Parts of Logan County are built over mines. We
Could you
have to pay
get close to the
insurance.
mic?
Got it.
We have to pay insurance to ensure that our homes are covered if the mines collapse. What assurances with the extra traffic are you going to do to stabilize your buildings?
So you're talking about like abandoned coal mines and things of that nature?
Not necessarily abandoned coal mines, but the structure is there
Yeah.
that we all deal with sinkholes in our yards. It's
Got
an
it.
unstable land.
So one of the things that we do before we go and build is we do a geotech analysis to make sure that the site is suitable to be able to hold this level of infrastructure. And so there's a deep level of analysis and engineering that goes into it to make sure that we can support it. I mean, keep in mind, we have to get this facility insured, and they put us through a rigorous underwriting process to make sure that they're not going to have to pay out on that claim. And that's a requirement that's usually in the contracts with the tenant, is to make sure that those sorts of things are checked off in diligence.
Thank you very much. Could you, ma'am, before you start, could you pull that mic down a little bit so you're right at mouth level? Thank you. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Alice. I live in Chestnut, Illinois. I have a question about, will there be lithium batteries at this plant?
There's no lithium battery storage. That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
That's not used here for battery storage to supply power to the data center.
Okay. You're going to be drawing water. Will that be coming from our groundwater?
So the plan would be to do the closed loop system as we talked about,
Yes.
and then for house water, for sinks and toilets, would come from us drilling a well deep down through very deep into the aquifer, and then we can commit that we would limit our usage to 9,000 gallons per day, which is what we talked about earlier.
Is it ever done?
I'm
The
sorry.
water in your system, is it ever
In
done?
the closed loop system?
Yeah.
That water is taken out by a professional firm that comes and takes it and they truck it out. The other water that's used for house water would just be taken from the aquifer and then recycled and go into the leach field and the sewer that we would have built for this facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, sir. Thank you.
All right, I'll try and keep this brief as I don't have anything prepared. Thank you for your time tonight. I have been busy, so I haven't really kept up with all the news on this. But what I do have is eyes that see and ears that hear. And when you tell me that this data center is an attractive opportunity for businesses, I don't see your average Joe coming and making a family restaurant because of a data center. I don't see someone coming in and making a local mechanic shop because of a data center. I see corporations and chains moving into the area. I see farmland turning into asphalt and concrete. These do not sound like local opportunities to me. They sound like a detriment to our community, and they don't sound like opportunities I want. And so I guess the question I have here is, who asked for this future for Logan County, and who asked for this future for Latham? Because I think these businesses are going to take away from the real local businesses. Who wants to get coffee at 121 when there's Starbucks down the street? Things like that. And we all say that we want to support local businesses, but we all know that people are going, even if it's just a small portion, it leaches off of those businesses. And my other concern, just as everybody else, is the water. Although it is a closed loop system, it is an exorbitant amount of water that needs to be refilled, as you say, every 5 to 7 years. And I don't ever see that water cost intake going down. All the research I've ever done has shown that AI data centers have consumed more water than the entire bottled water industry this year, and building more doesn't go up. And then I guess my second question is, we got handed this pamphlet before coming in with all these AI resources and these rules to keep children safe. Who enforces this? It's like, AI shall not replace human interaction. We can't control that. Kids are going to talk to AI. They are going to have these interactions with human replaced. And then on top of that, it lists like YouTube, ChatGPT. Are we aware that we still get these resources if we don't allow the data center to be built? What development in AI is so essential for this to be built here in Logan County, Illinois? Because I feel like there's a time and place for these things, and this is neither the time nor the place. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. For the local businesses, I hear you. I hate Starbucks myself, so I would be all about the local coffee shop. But as we bring labor and jobs to the area, they will need a place to eat. They'll need a place to shop. They'll need a place to live. These are all demands that can be filled by local businesses in Latham.
In Latham? Have you been there? Go there. See what we got.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Next speaker.
My name is Sydney Ashwood.
Madam, we can't hear you. Put it up close.
Sorry. My first question is, will spent cooling fluid be classified as industrial waste or hazardous waste? Because you stated earlier that there wouldn't be any hazardous waste. However, the chemical additives such as ethylene glycol, which is toxic, and fluorinated gases used as refrigerants, which are a type of PFAs, are used in closed loop systems. So which is it? My second question is, who would be responsible for long-term disposal liability? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that typically there's different types of solutions, but a common solution does involve glycol, and that's managed by a third party that disposes of the waste. And they truck it away and they dispose of it with EPA compliant standards. So what was the, and what was the other?
Question was, is the spent cooling fluid classified as industrial waste or hazardous waste? Given that it's ethylene glycol, which is toxic, and there's also fluorinated gases used as refrigerants that are a type of PFA.
So I'm not certain on the exact classification, but I can get back to you, but I can assure you that everything
They're
is.
hazardous waste.
I can assure you that everything is disposed of in an EPA compliant manner. I think you had another question?
I did, yes. My second question is, who would be responsible for long-term disposal liability?
So typically that goes back. Sorry, guys. You're talking about if we left and there's any waste on the.
Well, no, just like long-term disposal liability of what gets trucked out from, after 5-7 years.
Yeah, so we're responsible for that. But if the question is more like, well, hey, goes bankrupt and then what happens, then it would be dealt with in the CEP that we're talking, the additional use permit that we're talking.
Okay, we're going to have to put a quick end to this because the bewitching hour is just about upon us.
When you truck it out, where do you take it to? Is it?
Okay, we'll get that answer to you. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Okay.
925.
Was somebody writing down all the questions?
The hour 9:30 because the alarm system goes.
And we'll also follow up with an email.
What? I'll take your question.
Mr. Ross.
Yes, sir.
For a continued all
Say again?
for a continued all public comments at the Director of State Attorney's Office.
Okay, we're going to keep it open. Please go ahead, sir. You've gotten clearance.
Thank you. My name is Eric Smith, I live in Latham. I just had one question on what's to stop them from doing a tax appeal later? You know, they give us all these promises, but then what a lot of corporations do is they bring their lawyers in and they do a tax appeal, and the next thing we know, they're not paying near the taxes they were. And the other thing I want to do is I just think it's really important that we all say a prayer and that we ask our Heavenly Father that He would guide this council in the decision they have to meet, this committee, and that you protect us, Father, and whatever happens, we just ask that you protect us. In Jesus' name I ask, amen.
Amen. They have the rights of any other corporation or citizen to appeal their taxes. The adjudication is up to the tax appeal board.
Yes, there's just a lot of times
Yeah.
corporations do that, they come in and they do a tax.
I'm happy to take it a step further. So we're not asking for an abatement tonight, we're just asking for the zoning. And I had this conversation earlier, is that the way that these deals are structured, we do not pay the property taxes. It goes directly through to the big tech company ABC, and they pay 100% of it. So if we can attract someone that we all collectively feel comfortable with, that has staying power, it can be here a long time, without any sort of abatement, then that's an absolute great day. But if we collectively decide, hey, there's a big tech company with AAA credit who's looking at us, and they're looking at a neighboring county, and they're kind of playing us off someone else, and they're saying, well, hey, if you can give us an X% discount, we'll make that decision as a group and say, you know what, hey, maybe it makes sense to take a 20%, 30% discount to get AAA credit, because I can get a guarantee from, some Joe Schmo that's going to pay the property tax for the next 30 years, but if they don't have good credit, it doesn't really matter. And so that's something that we did in Louisiana. We made a conscious decision to attract a high-quality investment-grade tenant. They took a little bit of a discount on the property taxes, but they still ended up making, in this particular case, $90 million a year, and they have the certainty that it's from a AA- credit-rated partner. Yeah, and it was structured as a pilot, just to be clear, where instead of paying, it's structured as a more of a fixed payment, but we can get into the details on how that's structured. But I think it would be a community decision that we would make collectively, but HUD 8 does not benefit one way or another if it goes up or it goes down.
Yeah. Kathy Jones from Mount Pulaski, but I live halfway between Pulaski and Latham, and I'm about less than a mile from where you're planning on building. I have a question about the one you said by Niagara Falls. It's no longer functioning.
Well, it's functioning, but it's not economic to run right now.
So
Because
what does that mean? It's not functioning, or it is functioning?
it functions.
There's people in there?
It functions operationally, but economically, it was designed 4 or 5 years ago, and it
So
was.
what are you going to do with it? Leave it there? Or?
Yeah.
And what happens to the decommissioning? I mean, are you going to decommission it at some point, or leave it, or you keep trying to rent it out?
Yeah, so we designed it 4 or 5 years ago. It was designed for Bitcoin mining. We no longer do Bitcoin mining.
Okay, but
Yes, I understand. Let me finish. The power costs are too high for us to make it work, to attract a tenant. So we're figuring out what do we do with it. Is there someone else that wants to use it? No, we'll have to retire it responsibly and in compliance with our obligations.
keep us informed on that happening.
Yeah, I mean, it would be.
Another question.
Sorry, just, we're a publicly traded company, so anything like that, if you want, it will be in our 10Qs and Ks and all that stuff.
Well, I've seen what happens with the decommissioning of the wind towers out in California. They're all over and they're not running in the mountains. They're just some from probably 80 years ago. Another question is the roads. You're on a little gravel or a little dirt road that goes to this place. Are you going to fix that up?
Yeah, that's a good
And then
question.
Can you put that mic?
Yeah, sorry.
Put it on your shirt.
Sorry, it keeps sliding. Is that better? So yeah, that's a conversation that we're having today. There will be improvements to the road in order to make this work. When the data center is operational, there's not a lot of traffic.
The trucks.
The trucks during the construction. And 100%, there would need to be some sort of road use agreement and potentially expanding the
On the
roads.
3 shifts.
I'm sorry?
And the people that work there on the 3
Yeah,
shifts. 'Cause they're not
operation.
gonna live in Latham.
Oh, I'm not,
They're gonna be traveling, so.
what do you mean?
The people that are gonna work there, those 100 to 200 people, they're not gonna live in Latham. They might live in Logan County, some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah, I mean, I can't
So they're gonna
speculate on
travel.
where they're gonna
They're
live,
travel
but
better.
they're gonna commute.
I've seen the wind farms that fix the roads too, and they're a lot. Not very good.
Thank you. Thank you. Why don't you hold that in your
I'm
hand?
going to be real quick.
Okay.
I live a couple miles from there.
I can't hear you, ma'am.
I live a couple miles from there. And my concern is, no one's brought up the wildlife. Do you live near data centers? Do either of you live near a data center?
About 10 to 15 miles away.
15 miles, okay. How close do you live to a data center?
I do not.
Do you want to move next to them?
I would have no problem.
Okay. They don't live there, so why should we? They think we're a bunch of hayseeds in little old Latham and won't know the difference, and they assume that Logan County isn't smart enough to figure it out. That's the way I see it. I'm living in windmills. I don't want to live next to white lights. We're already living in windmills. And what does it do to the wildlife? We've already got the windmills causing trouble with the wildlife, and now we're going to bring this in for the wildlife. I say no. I'm not against data centers. I'm against a data center in my backyard.
Please go ahead.
I'm Sharon Moore, and I live in Latham. You're going to put this thing practically in my backyard. I won't be able to enjoy my pool anymore or having fun outside. You stood here and told us all the things you're going to do for our community. What? Not for Latham. We won't even get any of the tax revenues. They'll go to Logan County or Mount Pulaski, not to Orangeburg. What are you going to do for us? We have a bank, we have an elevator, we have a post office. There's nowhere you can even get a cup of coffee. What are you going to do for us?
Appreciate that feedback. That's why we're here tonight, is to work with you guys and understand what it is that can make this a more interesting and practical solution for Latham. So that's what we're in discussion with the county as well.
Get us a Casey's, get us a Dollar General.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, are there any other public comments?
Vote no.
All right, we'll go on to our, we're going to finish the committee meeting real quick with our executive director's report. Turn the mic on.
The only thing I have for the committee is that the application fee, and that has been changed when they go online. And the zoning penalty.
Okay, they can't hear you. I'll reiterate. The application fees have been posted to the ordinance on the net, and Mr. Howley is looking through the penalty situation so that we can get through that at the next meeting.
Vote no and do everybody a favor. Yeah, vote no.
All right. Any further business to come before the committee?
No, I've been asked to clarify that this is just the beginning of the process, that all of this has to go through the committee over and over during the whole building process. The other thing to keep in mind here is that the wind and the solar farms were put on us by the state. We did not have a choice on those. And this data center has been added in the fall legislative session. That's coming too. So they are taking the control away from the town. So, I mean, we're basically be allowed to set conditions. Other than that, we will not be able to deny these things once this legislation is finally amended this spring. So we can either deal with it now and get the conditions we want, or there'll be withdrawn.
Okay, any other business?
Can I just say,
Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Fitzpatrick, second by Mr. Coleman. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. For your next one.
Regular fans, you all know there's a home field advantage when it comes to sports. The same applies when purchasing a car, truck, or having your vehicle serviced. You'll have the home field advantage when shopping at Grouse Chevrolet in Lincoln. The trained sales staff at Grouse will provide you with a no-pressure sales process. It'll put you at ease all the way through the delivery. When it comes time for service, the certified mechanics will care for your vehicle like it's their own. Call or stop by the dealership on North Kickapoo Street in Lincoln or online at growinc.com.
Culver's is a family restaurant. To me, that means being the place that puts a smile on everyone's face. We're famous for our cooked-to-order butter burgers and frozen custard made daily inside our restaurants. But we've always believed more menu options mean more ways to brighten your day. We source the finest chicken to bring you our tenders and chicken sandwiches. And our cheese curds. They're a Wisconsin tradition we're proud to share with you. So take the next meal shift off and let us take care of you. Welcome to Delicious.
Culver's, home of the Butterburger, 2530 Woodlawn Road in Lincoln. Whether you're buying or selling your home, the brokers of Me Realty will work with you to get the deal done. As one of Central Illinois' top producing offices for decades, Me Realty has the experience to guide you through the process. You want results? Call the brokers of Me Realty at 217-735-5424, stop by the office at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, or check out local listings online at merealty.com. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center makes an impact locally and beyond through a wide range of events, ministries, and outreaches. Pastors Steve and Debbie Owens invite you to worship Sunday mornings at 10:30 and attend Wednesday night Bible studies at 6:30. Connect with FGEC online, follow them on Facebook, download their app, and visit their new website at myfgec.org with live YouTube video streams as well as recordings of services and special events. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center, 304 North McLean Street in Lincoln. This live video stream is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln and online at merealty.com. This program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.